The rolled cast is a great cast to use when there are obstacles behind you and you don't have lots of space. It's a very effective cast to use when fishing on rivers, allowing you to easily cast out your line without getting tangled behind. It's also a great way to get a working length of line out prior to an overhead cast. Body position is very important. Stand comfortably with one foot slightly in front of the other, facing the water. To get line out when you start fishing, using your spare hand, pull 2 to 3 arm lengths of line off the reel. Then lower the rod tip towards the surface of the water and wiggle the rod from left to right multiple times to allow the line to glide through the rod rings and out onto the water. You can use your spare hand to help. Place your thumb on top of the rod handle facing the rod tip and wrap your palm around it, holding firmly but gently. Then tuck the free line from the reel underneath the first finger of your rod hand. The rod tip should be positioned at the start point. This is just above the surface of the water. When casting, we often refer to a clock face. Directly above you is 12 o'clock, below is 6 o'clock, in front is 9 o'clock, and right behind is 3 o'clock. To begin with, you want to keep the rod tip just above the surface of the water. This is your starting point. From there, smoothly lift the rod to the 1 o'clock position, whilst keeping your elbow pointing to the ground and comfortably tucked into your body. From this position, imagine the rod is a hammer in your hand, and directly in front of you there's a nail which you're going to tap in. With one motion, tap your forearm forward to a pause at 10 o'clock, before slowly lowering the rod, stopping just above the water's surface. If done correctly, the line will land gently and smoothly on the water surface and relatively straight. It's vital to aim your rod tip at 1 o'clock. This allows for the line to create what we call a D loop. The D loop creates a static weight which we use to load the rod on the forward cast. Stopping your rod tip before or at 12 o'clock can lead to the line not casting out onto the water correctly and poor presentation. The hammer tap gives the line the energy it needs to break the surface tension, load the rod and create a casting loop that unrolls out onto the water in front of you. Take the rod tip from the 1 o'clock position to the 10 o'clock position in one smooth motion, using your forearm and not just your hand. The overhead cast is the most used cast as it's very effective at getting line out onto the water, particularly to gain distance. This video will cover the basic overhead cast, while the next video will cover false casting and shooting line, which helps get more distance. Body position is important. Stand comfortably with one foot slightly in front of the other, facing the water. Place your thumb on top of the rod handle, facing the rod tip, and wrap your palm around it, holding firmly but gently. Tuck the free line from the reel underneath the first finger of your rod hand. The rod tip should be positioned at the start point, just above the surface of the water. When casting, we often refer to a clock face. Directly above you is 12 o'clock, below is 6 o'clock, in front is 9 o'clock, and behind is 3 o'clock. To begin with, keep the rod tip just above the water's surface. This is your starting point. From there, lift the rod smoothly using your arm and with sufficient energy and speed to peel the line from the water. Try to keep your elbow pointing down at the ground. The rod tip should come to a stop at 1 o'clock. The fly line will follow the rod tip. Your forearm is doing the work here, lifting the rod from the water surface to the sky with minimal wrist movement, while your elbows comfortably tucked into your body. When you get to the 1 o'clock position at the end of the back cast, briefly pause before starting the forward cast. This enables the fly line to unfurl behind you in preparation for the forward cast. Then in one smooth motion, start the forward cast with a smooth, steady acceleration to a crisp stop at the 10 o'clock position, before lowering the rod, stopping just above the water surface. The fly line will follow the rod tip and, if done correctly, the line will unfurl above the surface and land on the water, gently, smoothly and relatively straight. It's important to use more forearm movement when performing the overhead cast and less wrist. Your forearm has much more strength and too much wrist movement can lead to many casting faults. Start an overhead cast with roughly the same length of fly line out on the water as the length of the rod. When done correctly, you'll feel the rod doing the work for you because it's designed to work with the fly line. It flexes and recovers. By pausing at 1 o'clock and then again at 10 o'clock, you're allowing the line to straighten out both behind you and then again in front of you, which leads to good rod load and generates line speed that can be used to shoot the line. Once you've mastered the basic roll and overhead cast covered in our previous videos, the next step is to learn how to false cast and shoot line. False casting and shooting line are fundamentals with overhead casting as they allow you to extend the line to create greater distance. The two key things to remember when false casting are an earlier stop point at 11 o'clock, not 10 o'clock, and to pause at both the 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock stop points. This keeps the line in the air and allows it to load the rod properly. Start your cast with approximately 1.5 to 2 rod lengths of line out. By pausing at 1 o'clock on the back cast and then again at 11 o'clock on the forward cast, you allow the rod and line to work together, achieving one fluid movement. This time, rather than holding the line under your rod hand finger, using your line hand, pull an arm length of line off the reel and hold it. This is the line you're going to shoot. Taking the rod back to 1 o'clock on the back cast, hold onto the line with your spare hand. Then on the forward cast only, let some go, allowing a little bit of line out with every forward cast. Only allow the line to shoot when the rod has stopped and not during the actual casting stroke until all the line from your spare hand is out. Single hauling adds speed to your fly line. It helps to load the rod and achieve greater distance. It's ideal to use in windy conditions as line speed gives you more control over your cast. Single hauling on the back cast is useful when you have the wind behind you, also known as a tailwind. As you lift your rod from the water to 1 o'clock, using your spare hand, pull down on the line. As with the usual overhead cast, pause at 1 o'clock before then casting forward. Single hauling on the forward cast is useful when you have the wind facing you, also known as a headwind. As you take your rod forward from 1 o'clock, using your spare hand, pull down on the line. Double hauling adds speed to your fly line. It helps to increase load on the rod and achieve exceptional distance. It's ideal to use in many situations as it gives you much more control over your cast. Single hauling on the back cast is useful when you have the wind behind you, also known as a tailwind. As you lift your rod from the water to 1 o'clock, using your spare hand, pull down on the line. As with the usual overhead cast, pause at 1 o'clock before then casting forward. Single hauling on the forward cast is useful when you have the wind facing you, also known as a headwind. As you take your rod forward from 1 o'clock, using your spare hand, pull down on the line. Double hauling involves putting both the back cast and the forward cast single hauls together in one single casting action. The most challenging aspect is mastering the timing required to move your non-rod hand into position between the forward and the back cast haul. Accuracy is vital when fly fishing, especially when aiming for a target such as a rising fish. Always stand facing the target you're aiming for. Keeping your fly rod in a straight line trajectory and remembering your stop points at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, aim for a high back cast and a low forward cast, aiming your rod tip at your target. Mending line is a key skill to improving presentation, particularly on rivers. The slack that it creates allows for your fly to spend more time drag-free on the water. To put a mend in the line, wiggle the rod at the end of your forward cast just before you lower the rod towards the surface of the water. When mending the line, remember the line will always follow the path of the rod tip. Improving your casting takes practice and time. For better accuracy and greater distance, try using targets on grass at home and changing the range of those targets. The more you practice, the better you'll get. One day it will all come so naturally that you won't even have to really think about it. Learning to cast is frustrating at first, but keep trying and you will get better. One of the best investments you can make in your fly fishing journey is a professional lesson, which can save many frustrated hours.